Well, I think for me, the challenge is, given the state of the planet, not just in terms of climate change, but also biodiversity, the nitrogen cycle, the ozone layer, quite a number of different Earth system processes that are under threat. The question is, how can the law help to ameliorate the situation that the planet is facing? And that's a big challenge, and there's no answer. There's no straight and simple answer to it. But I do believe passionately that the law has to play a role in it. And so the work that I've been doing has been around that, trying to think about ways in which the law and the Constitution as well can, the way our democracy works, the way we make the law, how can we look at those kinds of things with a view to ameliorating the whole range of environmental problems that we face. One of the most interesting ideas that I have come across recently, which goes, I think, in this direction in wildlife terms, is this concept of planetary boundaries. 29 scientists, and a remarkable intellectual effort from the US and Sweden, really, Johan Rockström particularly at the Stockholm Resilience Centre, have come up with this idea that there are basically 9 Earth system processes that we need, that if you like, define biophysical reality that we need to stay within for the purposes of what they call a safe operating space for humanity. It's more and more becoming clear that we need to legislate to recognise planetary boundaries. I believe that that's an incredible, it's the most exciting concept, I would say, in the 20 years, I would say, since Philippe taught me environmental law, that I have come across, that encapsulates the nature of the human being's relationship to the world in Western scientific terms. It kind of it tries to bring the sort of the traditions that are in other parts of the world that seem to understand these ideas much more, that it puts it into Western scientific language, into the sort of left brain classification, categorization language. And I think it's a great idea that I hope will get out there and which in some way can be legally recognized.
I think we neglect both the short-term and the long-term future. We neglect the short turnover processes and the long turnover processes alike. The short turnover ones we neglect because we think that we can always do better if we need to. So in the short term we might mess up children, family, economy, environment, whatever, if the parts we think short term, which is revving fast, because in 10 years we can start repairing it. And there are some processes which are very long term. First of all, we can impact and do impact, which we never dreamt of, like climate. And second, we cannot really find ourselves at peace with the fact that the trial and error approach is not working with these long turnover systems. We have a Parliamentary Commissioner for Future Generations since 2008 in Hungary. And this is a body, an institution, which has very wide investigative powers. Basically, it can find out, or he can find out whatever he wants to find out. It can be a military secret, it can involve anything. It can involve business secrets, it can go to private enterprises, to private, not to private homes actually, but to authorities anywhere except Parliament. We cannot re-investigate Parliament. Whenever there is a complaint about hurting someone's right to a healthy environment, or whenever the Commissioner thinks that someone's right to a healthy environment is in danger in the short or in the long run. And what the Commissioner finds out about a given situation or problem, he can publish it, he can go to Parliament and explain it, he can start juridical procedures, enter a process, litigate, even if the state doesn't want to litigate, or state authorities don't want to litigate but they ought to, we can do that. We can step into existing processes before the law at court on this or other side of the conflicting parties, and we are also free to, if we want, to promote proactive issues where there's no problem, but we want to create something positive instead. To give you an example, we are working on changing the official system of national indicators, the state of the nation indicators in Hungary, and to include different figures and different data which are more related to sustainability, to well-being, to social cohesion and things like that.
It's become almost a commonplace that we're facing what's often referred to as a triple crunch. And some people find 3 crunches, some people find 4 crunches, but broadly they're around high fuel prices and the risk of peak oil, high food prices and financial crisis. And some people would add to that the climate crisis as well. And in each of those areas we can quite readily suggest that each of these crises is a result of short-termism. Many people refer to them as market failures. I think they're actually failures of democracy. They're failures in democracies of the capacity of the people and people to govern, to think long-term, deliver long-term action to prevent these crises. There's a risk also that each of these crises could itself erode democracy. And I think that there are 3 sets of responses to these increasingly evident crunches, challenges, problems with scarcity, population growth, climate change and the financial crisis. And the 3 solutions which are interrelated are, first of all, to strengthen democracy so we can tackle the democratic roots of these crises, not view them as market failures, but as failures of democracy. Secondly, to strengthen the commitment of our governance systems to sustainable development, an integrated approach across economy, environment and society in which it is not always economic growth that trumps social justice or environment protection, and the 3 are viewed in an integrated way. And the third challenge and the third set of responses, and I think it's separate but related, is to adopt throughout our cultures and our political systems an approach that reflects principles of long-termism or regard for the future. And it's no good doing that if it's completely divorced from problems of social injustice in the present. One of the problems at the moment is that the way in which rhetoric around long-termism and future generations is being used politically is very largely about taking away grants for students in terms of higher education, taking away pensions, taking away. And at the same time, if the value of long-term thinking of future generations is crafted in terms of sustainable development, then it should be much more about adding processes where we can feel much more engaged and involved in our communities, in political decision-making, in holding our elected representatives to account, adding a better quality of life. And that leads me, in a sense, in an unauthorised way, for reasons I'll explain, to the Alliance for Future Generations. What I've just said isn't part of the narrative of the Alliance for Future Generations formally, but it's something that I think many of the members of the Alliance for Future Generations would feel motivated by. So this is a rather devolved grouping of some 20-odd organisations, some big and some small, and we've all aligned ourselves with a common goal, which is to ensure that long-termism and the needs of future generations are brought into the heart of UK democracy and policy processes in order to safeguard the earth and secure intergenerational justice. Ideally, there are very many people within the Alliance who would love that to become the beginnings of a wider movement, whatever that means. And we haven't worked that out, and we'll have loads of debates along the way.